The Crane Wives consists of 4 members currently and 5 members formerly. These include Emily Petersburg and Kate Pillsbury on vocals and guitar, Dan Rickabis on vocals and drums, Ben Zito on bass, and formerly Tom Gunnels on banjo. Crane Wives was originally a duo formed in Grand Rapids, Michigan at a Chinese restaurant where 2 solo acts, Emily Petersburg and Kate Pillsbury, decided to join forces. Sharing a common interest, the 2 decided to take inspiration from the Decemberists album The Crane Wife and called themselves the Crane Wives. This is also based off of the Chinese folklore called the Crane Wife. Dan Rickabis and Tom Gunnels, who were already pretty close as friends, then decided to join Emily Petersburg and Kate Pillsbury. Shortly after, Ben Zito joined the group. Having just started out as a music group, they decided to become part-time musicians instead of full-time so that they could earn their income somewhere else and not rely solely on income coming from their band. In 2011, they released their first ever album as a group called Safe Ship Harbored, which is most known for the track that shares a name to the album. Safe Ship Harbored, the song, has a lot more of an upbeat tempo than the rest of the album and includes a lot more jazz elements instead of the country sound that is more common on the album. The Crane Wives started out with a pretty small fan base that only skyrocketed when Colin Meloy, the lead singer of the Decemberists, posed with their album and posted the picture on social media. It soon became a trend to hold the album up to your nose and post the picture, similar to what Colin Meloy did. Shown here is the picture that started the trend with the Crane Wives album. The Crane Wives really started to pick up traction in 2012 and 2013. In 2012, the group decided to start touring Michigan musical festivals, while in 2013 they moved on to states that surrounded Michigan instead of staying in just the one state. During this time, Crane Wives also started to win a lot of awards, including WYCE's Jammies for Listener's Choice, Album of the Year, and Song of the Year for their song Safe Ship Harbored. In 2012, the Crane Wives released their second album labeled The Fool in Her Wedding Gown. This album is when the Crane Wives started introducing stories into their songs. While it has been heavily speculated for several years that the Crane Wives introduces queer representation into their songs, The Fool in Her Wedding Gown has been confirmed to be a love story between 2 women. This album includes a track that is one of the group's most popular songs with over 17 million plays on Spotify, entitled Tongues and Teeth. Tongues and Teeth has a much angrier tone than a lot of their other music. This album itself also has a lot of anger, even just in the title itself. In 2014, the Crane Wives released a Christmas album entitled A Very, Very Crane Wives Christmas. Though admittedly this album isn't as well received as their other albums, as not a lot of people are aware of this album as they are the others. In 2015, the group was able to transition from part-time musicians into full-time musicians. This was due to the increasing income from their albums, as well as a generous amount of donations from their fans. Emily Petersburg is reported to have been thanking her fans for their donations and hopes that they continue to be generous as they transition from part-time to full-time in order to sustain their lifestyle. This was first a concern because members such as Ben Zito had a family and kids that they had to be able to take care of and were unable to do so on only a part-time salary as a musician. Unfortunately though, at the same time, Tom Gunnels also decided that it was time for him to leave the band. Leaving on friendly terms, Tom Gunnels only left in order to pursue his own solo project entitled The Great Lake Natives. At their banjo, the Crane Wives started to heavily switch up from a country and folk type of sound into more of a rock and jazz sort of music with elements of electric guitar and the intense bass that was involved more to make up for the lack of a banjo. After their banjo left, they released another album in 2015 entitled Coyote Stories. This is where the elements of jazz and rock started really coming into play. Their second most popular song, entitled The Moon Will Sing, was actually released from Coyote Stories. It now has over 27 million plays on Spotify. By almost entirely switching genres, the band didn't lose any sort of popularity or fans. In fact, it only proved to increase the number of people listening to their music and the number of awards that they would receive. In 2016 and 2017, they won 2 more Jammies, as well as being one of the 10 groups in a contest entitled Entries We Loved, hosted by NPR Tiny Desk Contest. In 2016, they also released one of their most popular albums to this day, entitled Foxlore. Foxlore includes the single most popular song in the Crane Wives discography, titled Curses. Curses has over 29 million plays on Spotify. Admittedly, I am being a little self-indulgent by talking about this song a lot more than I did the other songs. Curses has a very titillating hook and amazing harmonies that really just make my ears happy. It is also one of those songs that has been heavily speculated as a queer love song and is widely accepted by the LGBT community. In 2017, they released a sequel that was recorded live called Take Me to War. In 2020, they released a live recording called Here I Am Live in the Listening Room as an album. Cranewives have yet to release any other albums, but that doesn't make them any less popular than they already are. Their music continues to be heavily played and listened to by their fans and on the social media site TikTok. They are still very active on social media and post consistently about their tours and what's going on around in the band. One of their more recent posts was about how they felt when they found out that one of their songs was trending on TikTok, generally showing their gratitude for their fans and listeners. So right now, their most recent posts on all of their social media have been about their tour that they will be taking in the spring of 2024. As of right now, they have 958,460 monthly listeners on Spotify. The Cranewives are considered a indie folk rock group, but that isn't necessarily the full truth. The Cranewives take influence from a variety of genres, not sticking to just one, and like to say that they are a little bit of everything when it comes to genres. They're very vocal about the fact that every single person in the Cranewives has been heavily influenced by the Decemberists and wish to model their music off of the Decemberist sound. Some similar bands or artists include the Oh Hellos, Fish in a Birdcage, Ricky Montgomery, and The Amazing Devil. Though these artists are all very different, they all include an indie sound when it comes to their music. When first listening to the Cranewives, the first thing that most people will be drawn to are Pillsbury and Peter Marks harmonies, a prime example being what you are hearing in the background right now. So another signature trait would be the deeper harmony coming from Dan Rickenbus. Ben Zito also plays a very important part as he plays the rumbling bass in the background that brings the songs together. In the albums that have been released from 2015 to the present, the most recognizable signature has to be the electric guitar that puts them apart from other folk artists. Before 2015, Tom Reynolds also brought the signature sound of the banjo that paired very well with the deep bass. As mentioned before, the Cranewives are an indie folk rock band most commonly, but a lot of their sounds and instruments put them apart from different folk artists. The song you are currently listening to is called Nobody and is from their album Here I Am Live from the Listening Room. It is also widely considered a queer love song, even if it isn't a very lovey-dovey sort of sound or lyrics. Once more a bit of a self-indulgent song. However, it is a very important song because it portrays the nitty-gritty of queer love, especially in more southern states where being queer isn't as accepted as it is in California. The singer is recognizing that she doesn't have the most perfect of relationships, and yet she also recognizes that she is being told that she is loved and she has to believe it because unfortunately in the South, you only have so many options when it comes to being queer. If you were to tell me this was a song that was written by an indie folk rock band, I would not have believed you. The indie and folk tend to be synonymous with the more country sound, and yet it is a completely different genre. Though in the beginning the Cranewives does tend to lean more towards country, near the end they lean more towards their indie rock. Talking about the most recognizable and or popular songs, we of course have to bring up Curses from the album Folklore. It has over 29 million streams on Spotify. Yes, about 1 million of those are mine. As their second most popular song, we have The Moon Will Sing from their album Coyote Stories, which has over 27 million streams on Spotify. That album is actually one of their most popular albums, as in this list of the top 5 on Spotify, we also have Never Love an Anchor that has over 10 million streams, and Allies or Enemies that has over 5 million streams. Of course, we have Tongues and Teeth from the album The Fool in Her Wedding Gown that has over 17 million streams. Despite not having dropped an album in a little while, the Crane Wives still remains incredibly relevant and popular in terms of our current culture and generation. Thank you for your attention.